Good morning, you dinkleberries. It's 3:07 in Guam, and the last time I checked, Osama bin Laden's still at the bottom of the ocean. This is Jeff the Bagman Baggett.
This is James the Nose Holt, and there is a possibility that somebody may be owning the Bills now. You're fired! All right, starting us off today. What is up your sleeve today, Bagman?
Well, my come on man goes out to the Football Hall of Fame election committee. I'm going to run some numbers by you, and first I'm going to preface it by saying that I am a diehard Notre Dame fan. 2 Golden Domers were elected to the Hall of Fame this past month, Jerome Bettis and Tim Brown. I'm going to pass it to you and ask, which one would you like me to compare this third person to?
I'll say Jerome Bettis.
All right, so let's look at Jerome Bettis, one of the premier rushers in the NFL history. Now, Jerome Bettis went to the Pro Bowl 6 times. This person went to the Pro Bowl 7 times. Jerome Bettis was All-Pro 2 times. This other person was All-Pro 3 times. Now, Jerome Bettis does have a Super Bowl championship ring. Well, this gentleman does not. But this other person was also elected to not only the 1980s, but the 1990s All-Pro, All-Decade team. He holds 13 NFL records, most of which won't get touched anytime soon. Jerome Bettis, on the other hand, is 6th in rushing, 32 in receiving, and 133rd in points. This gentleman has scored the most points in NFL history. He's played the most games in NFL history. He's scored in the most consecutive games, 360. That person is Morton Anderson. And I can't for the life of me figure out why he was not elected to the Hall of Fame. Come on, man.
Rant today is on the AP poll or the coaches polls and rankings. I equivocate those to the BCS in football. To me, you cannot rank Kentucky up as high. Yes, they are number 1. Yes, they are undefeated. I totally understand that. But do they have the teams in the SEC this year to rank them as a number 1 team when they've been so close to losing to unranked teams, usually within 2 to 3 points of those teams? When you have Virginia working their heart out, losing a player, and still doing well, still mostly undefeated. Yes, they did lose 1, and that was to a team I'd rather not mention, Duke. But still, why do you have these guys look at a team and say, oh, they're the greatest team? It's like Syracuse years back when they lost to, oh, wait, hold on, it was UNC in the final game. They would have been a totally undefeated team, but they just got hammered thanks to UNC Chapel Hill. Now, let's move on. There's my rant for the day, and there's the Bagman's.
Are you really just upset at UNC being in there, or the fact that Duke is in there with them?
Regrettably Duke. But, hey, Kentucky can't be a number 1. Not a number 1 team in my book. When you get them on the ropes, do they work it out well? No. Are they getting better? No. I don't believe they are. I have not seen where they have gotten better over time. They are the same team. People are scared of them.
I think in the end, the tourney's going to wipe everybody out, and the strongest is going to survive. So
totally.
I wouldn't
March
worry
Madness.
about who's number 1 is.
No.
All right, here we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, new segment that we have, the Fantasy Minute, here with Heath the Beard Caps, and you can catch him on Twitter at Heath Caps.
That's
Who
right.
would be my picks for this week?
Your picks for this week, are we talking like daily fantasy, fantasy basketball?
Let's go with some daily fantasy of, let's go with basketball.
Basketball. All right, so here, the deal with like fantasy right now for me is that you're mid-season with basketball, so you can't start like a fantasy basketball team. So what I've been doing, because it's less time-consuming, is daily fantasy sports, and you can get into like all kind of weird sports like MMA. You can do like daily fantasy golf.
So who is going to beat who in MMA, or how's that work?
I don't honestly know. I don't watch MMA, so I don't know. But I have been doing NBA, not really making tons of money, but I'm kind of like breaking even. So the big story, like the last 2 days, has been Kevin Durant being hurt. So he's probably, I heard it from somebody else, and I can't quote him. I don't remember who it was, but thought it was interesting that anytime like the league MVP goes down, the Oklahoma City Thunder become suddenly more interesting, because then Russell Westbrook takes over the show, which for daily NBA is big news, because he's a must start. Like you cannot afford to bench Russell Westbrook.
Gotcha, right. Now you're saying money. How has that worked out? That's fantasy money. Do you get a bank account to set up?
No, this is real money. So you can, if you've seen like the DraftKings commercials or FanDuel,
right?
You log in with like maybe you put $20 in your account, and then it's real money, man. You gotta be safe with it, be smart with it. So it's kind of a lot to dive into, but the big news on my end with that is, as long as Kevin Durant is out, I'm playing Russell Westbrook every day.
All right, then give me one hit of who you're going to pick as baseball. Give me your top 3 guys.
Top 3 guys for baseball. Man, off the cuff. All right. So I really like Anthony Rendon, and he's a completely obvious choice because he's probably one of your 2 or 3 second basemen that hits for a high average, hits home runs, steals bases, all that sort of thing. He can play 2 positions, which is a big deal in fantasy baseball. So Rendon is a big one. I personally really like Michael Brantley, who's going in the 2nd round in most leagues. A lot of people are kind of down on him. They don't think he can repeat the power surge from last year, but I think he can do enough to warrant a 2nd round pick. So I like Michael Brantley. And let's go with a pitcher. Right now, honest to goodness, I've been listening to too much Michael Salfino, who's a big proponent on Twitter of passing on early pitching and getting your high strikeout relievers. So I'm buying into like some Craig Kimbrell or some Greg Holland in like the 5th or 6th round, maybe even the 4th round. That way I can like punt starting pitching and not worry about taking pitchers until the end of the draft.
And then last question here, give me a surprise pick for a baseball team that nobody would normally look at. Give me just one guy at least.
Surprise pick. Man, I did this without notes today. Nose man. I'm going to go with Jose Peraza for the Atlanta Braves. He's probably not even going to be called up until midseason, but he's got crazy awesome speed. And we just re-signed Kelly Johnson, which lets you know that we have nobody to play second base right now. So if he shows that he's ready at all, he's probably going to come in and steal tons of bases. And that's a name I'm keeping in the back of my head.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So, reformatting the 4-3 style to a style that Jeffrey Baggett would like.
So I was reading an article this weekend from hardballtimes.com. I was looking at it. I was trying to find some statistics on what the advantage in the 7-game series was. And I was thinking back to something Greg Popovich said about the San Antonio Spurs and sitting so many people. And he said, I'm basically not going to waste my players.
And he gets fined every year for this.
Yeah, just for one game. And I started looking at some statistics. Now, this is strictly speaking in baseball. In a 7-game series, there's a 54% chance of the home team winning. Well, the team that hosts 4 games over 3 has a 54% chance of winning. In actuality, they win 51.25% of the games. My point is one game, statistically, a half a game, enough advantage to give somebody the top seed in a 162-game season, or in the NBA, what is it, 83 games, 82 games?
Yeah.
Is that enough advantage? So my proposal is, as much as I am a purist in sports, I think it's about time we go to a 5-2 advantage. And I propose a 3-2-2 format. The favorite gets 3 games at home, then 2 games on the road, and then 2 games at home. The only negative side to this is the fact that if the favorite team wins their first 3 games, they're looking at clinching on the road, not celebrating at home. But I don't think anybody really cares about where they do. After all, the Super Bowl team has never celebrated on their home turf.
how about, in saying that, and that's a good ideology, but what about, hey, I won the first game, I get to stay home. Whoever has the best record, stay at home that first game. But then if they win that next game, they get to stay at home. As long as they win, they stay at home. If they lose, they automatically go to the other team's field.
I see what you're saying, but logistically, I don't think it's possible.
I know ticket sales would be hard to really clinch at that time. Hey, we're coming back home. But you could theoretically sell possibility of tickets and then hold that money in a bank to then...
Yeah, but the whole thing about flying and putting that kind of wear and tear, if a team's winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one, going back and forth, that's a lot of wear and tear on athletes. I don't know if you're going to get that passed by the Players Association in the respective leagues. I'm just saying, it's time that we give more of an advantage to teams that bust their tail throughout the season, throughout a long season, more so than, hey, you get an extra game, which amounts to a half a game statistically.
Baseball, on that note, baseball, to me, you usually have teams that are close in the World Series. It's not always a blowout. It's not always a 4-game sweep in a 7-game situation compared to, I understand the World Series is always a great one to watch. Football, though, on the other hand, you have one game, somebody, statistically, in the past, has been blown out a couple of times there. Within the past 10 years, it's not been great games until the last 2 or 3. Basketball, you'll have teams sweep. It's not fun to watch, where the World Series is a little bit more fun. 7 games, there is a possibility of going now.
There's a lot of things that are different from baseball than most sports. That's a whole nother conversation for another day.
True, where you have the athletics and the twins
what else you got
winning, and they have the lowest.
Yeah.
Anyway, how about March Madness, the likelihood of the top 10 team winning?
The top 10 team right now, or are we just going to want to make a prediction?
Here is your top 10 at the moment.
At the moment.
You got, I'm just going to run them quick. Kentucky, Virginia, Gonzaga, Duke, Wisconsin, Villanova, Arizona, Kansas, Utah, Notre Dame. And you look at those teams, and you've got probably about 4 of them who have never won a championship in the NCAA.
So is this a who you taking?
No, not a who you taking yet.
I tell you what, if I look at those top 10, that top 10 team right now, those top 10 teams, I would take those top 10 teams over the rest of the field. Without even knowing who the rest of the field are, I would feel comfortable in predicting that one of those teams up there is going to win the NCAA tournament.
I'm going to have to agree and disagree with you. There again, regrettably, you got a Duke who always comes out strong in the NCAA, except for, again, the past 3 to 5 years, which have been very hard on them. They've been a number 2 team in the nation in rankings and then beat by number 15 twice. But you got Virginia, who, real quick, let me run some stats for you, who's lost their best player in Justin Anderson and has only, eclipsed teams by 4 points, 5 points here and there, 1-point game to Wake Forest, an NC State team that only lost to them by 4 points, and then Louisville, who only lost to them by 5 points. But if you get a Justin Anderson back, who does have 13.4 points per game, is their assist leader, when you get him back, it's totally going to change that team around. They're going to be back up on top better than Kentucky.
We got 2 weeks to think about it.
We'll revisit that shortly in 2 weeks. Now,
we got to move on.
Last segment.
Who you got?
Who do you got? Do you want to go first? Or
you go first, because I got nothing.
You've got nothing. Who are you going to pick? And my favorite sport's basketball. I'm going to go with Bill Russell, who has 11 championships. But think about when he was playing. Wilt Chamberlain or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Who I got? I got Kareem. Kareem the Dream. The skyhook machine. When I was a kid, that's all I did was I shoot skyhooks from 3-point range. 3-point range. I can rain it down. I got Kareem all the way.
So Bill Russell with 11 rings is not
great team player. Great Celtics team. No, I'm going with Kareem.
Wilt the Steel?
Who you got? I have no idea. Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. I'll give it to you because I know you can't do it in 10 seconds.
Manny Pacquiao, definitely. I want to see Floyd Mayweather get his butt handed to him. Hope to God that it does, because he is a flaunter and a swagger person that just likes to dance around the ring.
Yeah, this is Jeff the Bagman Baggett, and I just realized I went a whole episode without calling somebody a jackhole.
James the Nose Holt.
And we're
just saying.
Help me, Jesus! Help me, Jewish God! Help me, Allah! Ah! Help me, Tom Cruise! Ah!